Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Green Earth Podcast. I'm Pedro Zimmer, your host, and in today's episode, we're joined by Davis Pascal Atugumye, who is part of our amazing Green Earth team in Uganda as an agronomist. But before we begin, I'd like to remind you that the Green Earth Podcast is a Green Earth initiative. Green Earth is a large scale, nature based project developer, and our goal is to help nature flourish and prosper. If you want to learn more about our projects, please check our website, green.earth. The link is also in the description. But now, with no further ado, here's our conversation with Davis Pascal. Pascal, first of all, thank you very much for joining us and for accepting the invitation to be on the Green Earth podcast. We're really, really excited for this conversation. How are you doing today? And would you like to introduce yourself, talk a little bit about what you do at Green Earth?
Yeah, thank you, Pedro. Really excited to be part of this. It's been a really a long time coming, and I'm really glad that I'm here. For starters, I'm Atugumye Davis Pascal, and I am the senior agronomist at Green Earth. But I work with a project in Uganda, which is the Bulindi Agroforestry and Chimpanzee Conservation Project. And here, this is where I do usually my agronomy work. And most of the time, I work with smallholder farmers within the field.
That's amazing. I know that this conversation has been a long time coming, and there are so many questions that I want to ask you. But the very first thing that I want to ask you is, how did you end up in this position? So, first, when did you decide that you wanted to become an agronomist, and how did you meet and join Green Earth at first?
First things is I've been an agriculturalist for quite some time, about 5 years. And for the previous years, mostly I've been working with different institutions. And I spent most of my time working with smallholder farmers. And usually what I used to do with smallholder farmers wasn't something that really matched with my values. I would be honest on that. Just because if you look at the agricultural systems currently that are really trending in the world. You're looking at commercial agriculture. People are using quite a lot of agrochemicals. Generally, it is very unsustainable, and it's something that I really later on got bored with because I noticed that in one way or the other, the world is deteriorating. And the more I promoted the use of agrochemicals, the more I promoted the unsustainable practices, the REs, I found myself dwindling, and I really found it really boring. And just because I knew I had a little knowledge of the biological methods farmers could use, the cultural methods people could use to really grow food at the end of the day. Um, Amongst the many there is, agroforestry truly stood out for me. And at a time in July 2023, I landed an opportunity at Green Earth where I applied and really went through. And I really came to Green Earth just because it was really aligned with my values. And I knew I would really push all the good things in Green Earth, whatever I really wished for the farmers and for the world at large. I felt that my voice would be heard here at Green Earth. And here I am to work with local farmers and to work with everyone to ensure that we are living in a sustainable world at the end of the day.
That is super cool to hear.
Yeah.
But my question is, what is agroforestry specifically? Because it seems like it's like one branch of agriculture. But how
Yeah.
does that work?
Well, agroforestry is interesting. One, it involves intentional mixing of crops and trees that interact together on the same land unit. Okay? But, or maybe in simple terms, is the intentional spatial and temporal arrangement of trees, crops, animals on the same land unit interacting together. So, in one way or the other, it is kind of a complex system, but at the end of the day, it is an easy system that one would really work with, because it involves picking specific species that can really work together, and they are placed on the same land unit but in different spaces in order for them to function together and improve the environment at the end of the day. So basically, that's agroforestry.
Oh, I see.
Yes. And that's how it works. Yeah.
Because if you put only one species, it will eventually deteriorate the soil. So whenever, for example, here in Brazil, when I go travel, when I go around farms and everything, I see like these vast fields of soy or corn, but it's just that
Yeah.
for like miles and miles, and you don't really see anything else. So is that like something that is
Yeah.
actively harming the soil underneath it?
Absolutely. It's something that is really harming the soil, because if we look at monoculture itself, uh, if you have one field, at the end of the day, the plants that you put in one field are absorbing the same amount of nutrients from the soil. And the more you do it over and over again, it means you're removing all the nutrients from the soil and just leaving it without nutrients. Okay. So at the end of the day, one is forced to use agrochemicals to ensure, let's say, like synthetic fertilizers, to ensure that he provides all the nutrients that are required by the plant. But at the end of the day, the more they apply synthetic fertilizers, you realize that they have an effect on the microorganisms that are in the soil. And of course, the microorganisms are the ones that help break down all the residues within the soil and, you know, um, bring about fertility within the soil that would be good for any crop. By the end of the day, because these crops have been pulling out all the nutrients, you realize that the soil remains infertile. By the end of the day, there's also a risk of increasing pests all the time. You know, uh, when
Wow.
pests, yeah, when it is only one crop, pests have the potential to breed all the time. They breed all the time because they have enough food, they lay eggs, so their life cycle continues at the end of the day. So in the first year, if they are doing commercial agriculture, they might have very few pests, but over time, in the third year, they will have a lot of pests, and they will need to, spray them. But the game changer that agroforestry brings about is uh, different species are brought together to ensure that they they play a different role within the whole system. Within a system, we might have species that are fixing nitrogen into the soil, which is very, very important for vegetative growth when it comes to, growth of trees. But we also have those that have that are nutrient accumulators. Usually what they do is pull nutrients from the deepest level of the ground to the nearest point where other plants can pick nutrients. But there are those that also help in pulling water from the deepest levels to the nearer levels where plants can really access water at the end of the day. So usually those are usually characterized by longer taproots. Okay. So it's a mix of many things, but there are those that have a weird scent, a bad scent that can really push away insects at the end of the day. But then, even by dropping leaves at the end of the day, they are improving on the soil fertility at the end of the day. But at the same time, they also help in reducing the harsh conditions. For example, if we have erratic rains, they'll reduce on the pressure. At the end of the day, we will not have soil erosion happening. Um, Basically, it keeps the whole system balanced. But in agroforestry, usually there are positive interactions and negative interactions. And that's why we're saying that it is uh, the intentional practice of mixing trees of different species. Uh, One has to be very careful about which species they pick uh, to mix with the others. So basically, the whole thing is for every species that you pick and put within within a system, it has to be contributing to the other. Okay? It has to be contributing to the other species. Yeah. So it is a careful process. By the end of the day, it is really, truly, truly rewarding. And at this point, this is where I say it is not something for everyone to wake up in the morning and do it on their own. So we need extra knowledge to ensure that we implement it at the end of the day, to ensure that we get its benefits fully.
Yeah, that sounds super interesting. And what you say, of course, I always give examples from Brazil because it's where I am, it's where I see lots of things. But I find what you said, for example, to picking the right species, like we see a lot of eucalyptus forests here in Brazil, but you see that nothing grows beneath those eucalyptuses. It's literally just those trees, and there are no bushes, there are no other trees because it dries up the soil around it a lot. So I'm guessing eucalyptus wouldn't be a tree that you would use for agroforestry.
There are many trees that you can't use. One of the things that we look at while trying to choose species are such kinds of things, and that's what we call allelopathic traits. Allelopathic traits, it's a process whereby a certain plant releases exudates or chemicals that are poisonous to other plants. A clear example is eucalyptus, but even neem tree sometimes, however much it is good, uh, it is best to not use it within the fields. More so, looking at agroforestry model here, we deal mostly with cash crops, and you realize if we intercrop them with plants or trees with the same with such allelopathic traits, the farmer at the end of the day doesn't get anything out, because one, the crop is usually stunted, it's deprived of, usually basically it's poisoned, and it does not grow and it remains stunted, and the farmer doesn't get anything out of it. So through our processes, we always choose the best trees that can work for the farmer. And mostly in agroforestry model, we are working with Albizia coriaria and chinensis. And mostly this one is a good tree species that helps to fix nitrogen into the soil. Okay? It's a nitrogen
What
fixer.
is the common name of this tree? Like not the scientific one, but the one that we would say.
That's usually the common name, Albizia. But here in Rinyakitara,
Aldizia.
in Uganda, it's Albizia. Albizia.
Albizia.
ALBIZ. Yeah, Albizia coriaria. But anyway, there are many kinds of Albizias and they have different characteristics. But for coriaria,
Right.
that's what we do. And then we have Kaya anthoseca, which is common mahogany, which is hardwood. So one, it has a very deep taproot. It helps in balancing the water table. Then we also have Ficus mucuso, which also performs the same function. It has a very deep root. And then we also work with Prunus africana, which is a medicinal species, and it's used to control or treat prostate cancer here in Africa. And recently, it's extinct, I can say, and many people don't know about it because most people have really, really harassed it because of its bark, and at the end of the day, it has kept on drying out, and the populations are very low. And we are lucky that on this project that we are really, really promoting it at the end of the day. But among us all...
It's almost going extinct then.
Yes, it is. Just because of its medicinal properties.
Wow.
Yeah. So we are promoting it here fully and ensuring that everyone has a Prunus africana on their field. But then I've also talked about Ficus mucuso. Mostly, we have seen quite a lot of land use changes here. People have cleared their pieces of land. They are getting into commercial agriculture. And it is very hard to find, to see birds around or some other wildlife. So we are including Ficus mucuso because it attracts several birds, it attracts other wildlife, yeah, because of its fruit, So at the end of the day, we are
Right.
trying to create a balanced system at the end of the day. Yeah.
And then not just the balance between the plants, but also with biodiversity and more
Yes.
species coming around.
Yes, that's true.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
And when you plant those trees in between the crops, like, do you have to put them everywhere? Is it on a part of the field only? What is usually the distribution among the farm?
The distribution among the farm is usually, I can say even, we ensure that the whole farm is covered. Because one thing that we are working with delicate plants, uh, we plants that have a very simple leaf. So for them, they're usually shade lovers. That's coffee and cacao within the agroforestry system. So we have to ensure that we provide them with at least enough shade, which is about 30 to 50% of
Oh,
shade.
they have to grow in the
Yeah.
shade.
Yeah, they have to grow with the shade.
Right.
Without the shade, then the farmer doesn't get fruit and they dry up so fast at
Mm,
the end of the day because when it is really, really too hot for them, they stop functioning. They first hibernate
right.
and wait. And the more they hibernate, when they hibernate for long, they just eventually die. Yeah. So we have to ensure that the whole field has enough shade. And at the end of the day, it is well covered to maintain enough water within the field. Yeah. So mostly it is a simple and complex, a simple at the same time, a complex system. And most of the smallholder farmers we are working with, really, the very first time you're talking about agroforestry, they seem to know it. And actually, the whole thing is we are not teaching them anything new. They've been doing it for a very long time. They know what to do and they've done it before. But the difference is times have changed, the environment has changed. So it means that everything has to be done differently. Whatever is happening now is not what used to happen before. There are a lot of technologies that have come up, and the more challenges that have come up because the times are really changing. Sometimes it is truly hot. They have to learn how to conserve water. Back then, they had a lot of plenty of water, but now they do not. So this is where we really come in to work with them and ensure that they implement this system on their fields. One is by meeting them and teaching them on how best they can prepare their fields to ensure that these the indigenous trees that we're giving them and the cash crops that we're giving them really grow and survive and truly go through the harsh conditions. One farmer might think that they truly know how to pit or dig a hole where they put the trees and cacao. But however much they do it, they think it's rocket science. They're just going to go and just make a small pit and put the seedling there. But it's usually different. So we come in to train them and tell them, yes, simply if you're told to dig a hole, you just get your hoe and dig. But these are the specifications that we would work with to make sure that we have our crop surviving in the field. We have the tree surviving, we have the cacao surviving. So we tell them we have to pit a 2 by 2 feet pit, and that is where we are going to put our seedling. And we explain to them the reason as to why we are digging this huge pit. We are digging the pit because we need water. We need the pit to store a lot of water. Even when the dry season comes, the water is there. A farmer wouldn't really understand it, but over time, as by the time we start working together, they really know because we are usually futuristic. We usually see the trends of the weather, the whole climate, and plan accordingly to ensure that we really go through the harsh conditions that are coming. So we work with them step by step. We visit them often, like all the time. Whenever we have the chance, we visit them and we bring them together and train them every step all the way. And oftentimes we do what we call pre-season trainings. When it is time for planting, we teach them. We give them those small tips that they're supposed to know before they get into the field. All right. For example, it is planting season. This is how they plant. This is how they prepare the field. This is how they plant. You know, and they learn that. And midway, we also teach them now. But midway, we teach them how to really control pests. And at the end of the day, within a season, we'll also teach them how to go through the dry season. And we keep on repeating it and repeating it. And we move with them until they've started getting the fruits at the end of the day. So it's usually a step-by-step process that we take them through to ensure that they truly, truly learn and ensure that their seedlings survive.
But can you tell me a little bit more about these farmers? Because I think that whenever we go to see farmers around the world, they are very different. If you look at a farmer in Brazil, it's very different from a farmer in the Netherlands, which is probably very different from a farmer in Uganda where you are. So, can you tell me a little bit more about the farms in Uganda? Are they usually family farms? The farms are big, small? How are the farmers? What is the level of instruction that these people have? Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, I can say the small holder farmers. When I talk about a smallholder farmers, I'm talking about a farmer who has about 0.5 acres to 2.5 acres. Usually that's what they have. And these these household farms are usually characterized by just the man of the house, uh, the wife, and their children. And they usually work together to ensure that uh, they they establish everything on the farm. So, and usually it's just a woman doing all the work in a home. So, and most of them, it's not that they have really gone to school or they have studied agriculture. They don't have that background. And there is a saying that everyone in Uganda is a farmer because everyone does farming. And even before anyone goes to work, the first thing they do, even if they have a formal job, the first thing they do is first go to their farm and then go to work. So at least everyone is a farmer by default. Where they went to school for it, where they have the expertise, they usually learn along the way, and that's their way of living. And there are those who completely do farming from morning to evening, from January to December, like all year through. They're usually farmers. So those are the categories of farmers that we work with. They're not used to advanced technology. Most of the things that they do, they do everything by hand. If it is weeding, if it is planting, everything is usually done by hand, and it requires a lot of labor for them to really work. So sometimes they work with families, and you find a man, husband, a man, wife, and children all working together to ensure that they sow plants for the whole season, either for their own consumption or for sale, something of the kind. So those are the kinds of smallholder farmers we're working with. And the funny part of it all, it's not that most of them have let's say land titles, or they have land rights. Others have inherited land from their parents, so they don't have that documentation. Others have just come from different places, and they just bought land within an area. So there are usually those differences, or sometimes most of them have fragmented lands. Let's say, for example, they have a plot of land in one village, they have another in another village, and then they have another plot of land in another town. And they usually sum them up to be like, okay, now I have 2 acres. So, but they're all fragmented, and it really gets so hard for them to farm. But yeah, we really work with them still. and ensure that they truly understand what we're working with. And I'll tell you, the biggest percentage of the people that we're working with, it's not that they went to school for agriculture. No, they just do things just by the way they think about them. They wake up in the morning and be like, I have to plant cacao. So all they know is you dig a hole, they don't care about the size, and just put it there. And after putting it there, they think it will grow on its own and walk away. And that's why actually we always have to come in and truly, truly help them and ensure that, yeah, uh, they get quality produce at the end of the day.
That's really interesting because it's very similar to this what the situation was in Brazil when my great grandparents came to Brazil for the first time, and it was pretty much like that. You have small farms, everyone was working, and actually, in my part of the country, it's very common to have really big families, like 5 or 6 children. But that's because they needed people to work on the farms. So that's why they would have lots of
Yeah,
children all the time.
yeah. Many children.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And actually, it is the same thing here. And actually, at some point, you realize that those who are even in polygamous marriages, they have very many wives just because they need labor. And also, they need to protect most of their assets and keep them into use. So
right.
it's it's one of the common things, yeah, that really happens here as well. So there's no big difference between Brazil that time and us here currently.
That's really interesting, really interesting. And so, okay, so you bring you help them with the science, everything, so that they can get more out of their land, essentially, which is really interesting. When you
Yes.
don't know
Yeah.
how to take advantage of the land that you have, it's, of course, you have crops that fail, you have crops that don't yield as much produce as they could.
Yeah.
That is really, really interesting. And when you put agroforestry into the equation, how is the farmer's response to it usually? Are they open-minded to it, or do they take a while to understand and accept that, okay, we're gonna have this tree that is not really going to give me any fruits or anything that I can sell, but it's important to have it here. Why? How is that conversation usually?
The farmers are usually positive, and usually, I can say when we start talking about this whole idea, they truly find it hard. It takes them time to understand. So we usually break it down into simple steps. We tell them why the trees are important. Then we tell them the cash crops, and then we also show them the economic value. But then we also show them the broader picture that if we do this together, the whole world, this is how we are going to be. We are going to be highly sustainable. We are going to have healthy landscapes. They're going to be restored, and they truly understand it. But one thing that really gives me joy is when you're seated with the farmers and talking about the trees, telling them we have to integrate trees with the cash crops that we are planting. And based on the methods that we use in working with them and training them, they're usually participatory methods. So when you're seated and they're talking within each other, they usually talk about the importances of trees. And one of the best thing that has always stood out for me is sitting down and looking at them talking to each other, trying to teach themselves and sharing their own ideas. And one stands up and says, you people don't really want to plant trees, but back then our grandfathers planted trees, and these are the trees that we have cut all our life. All the trees we've cut were not planted by us. So this is our turn to plant trees that our future generation will cut. You get? And all of a sudden, everyone, all the farmers keep, I've experienced this about 3 times. All the farmers keep quiet and agree to it and be like, yes, you've made a point. Let's plant trees. You get? Let's plant trees where they truly get the importance why we are mixing these trees. And we also show them the real scenarios that we have we show them the scenarios that have happened. Most of them have tried to plant coffee, most of them have tried to plant cacao, but in an open field. And if you went to them, they don't even have half of the fields, all right? And it's just because of the harsh weather conditions, poor field establishment. So we try to borrow their examples and show them, look, if we do this, at the end of the day, you're going to have your cacao and you're also going to have your trees where you'll get medicine, trees that will provide shade for your cacao and comes better, or your coffee. But even trees that will give you timber many years later, 40 years later, all right? And then they look at it, but we also sit down and do the math with them. Do the math. In 5 years, at least, we project, we show them, we do a projected income statement. They also contribute to it because they already know the prices of cacao, they already know the prices of coffee, they know the prices of timber. So we always take them through that whole economic uh, exercise and do the calculations together. They contribute. They're like, cacao, a kilogram is 25,000 Ugandan shillings. But let's say it's a bad season and let's work with 15,000 Ugandan shillings. So we do the math and they really see how much they get when they sell at a lower price and how much they would get when they sell at a higher price. And at the end of the day, they'd be like, this is a big deal. We truly have to go for it. And yeah, we work with it. But of course, everything usually comes with a challenge. It is not a smooth road at all. Yes, we are working with smallholder farmers. Yeah, but all we ensure it is like harsh conditions come. Sometimes the weather is unpredictable. None of them have irrigation kits. So it is usually a process. We are always on our toes to make sure that we prepare them and ensure we have the highest survival rate as possible within the field. So, and most of the times it's because they have quite a lot to do. As I told you, all farmers, everyone here is a farmer by default. However much they have some other things that they do, even if they have a formal job, but they don't have the time. Sometimes they are not seriously committed to their fields at the start. So we usually work with them to show them the way, and by the end of one season, at least they truly know what they are working for and where they're really going. So we have to overstep in their fields. And we are lucky that we are in a good relationship with them and they always let us visit their fields all the time and ensure that. And oftentimes they also reach out, they make calls, and we are always there to help them.
That's really interesting to hear because it really shows that this, in order to really do this systematic and sustainable change, we need to look from very, very closely for the very simple steps of, as you said, like making an economic calculation with the farmer and
Yeah,
showing them how it's worth it for them to follow these steps, to follow these procedures that
yeah,
is going to be profitable for them. And it really shows how you can't really become sustainable without affecting the whole system. And that's really, really interesting to see that we
yeah,
are taking all of those steps. We are taking in all of those measures in order to have this solution work for years on end. And yeah, it's really
yeah,
great to see. So you coming back a little bit from to agroforestry per se, because from what you mentioned,
yeah,
the way that we do agriculture today, which is, when you look at these other agricultural practices, which are, one essentially, just
yeah,
one type of plant, all the way to these huge farms
yeah,
doing this industrial kind of agriculture, it's harmful for the soil. It's so the soil is going to yield less and less crops throughout the years,
yes,
right?
yes,
And it also incurs more cost to the to the farmers, right? Because you need to get essentially
yeah.
some additives for the soil, some what is the name of that in English? I forgot. It's
Fertilizers.
fertilizers, exactly. That's the word that I was looking for. You need to you need to spend money on that, and it's more expensive to plant. It's more expensive to make plants to grow.
Yeah.
So it's less and is
Yeah.
it yields diminishing returns, right? So when you look at
Yeah,
agroforestry,
that's true.
this regenerative agriculture way of doing things, it
Yeah.
really feels like it's something that is actually going to be more profitable even in the future. So my question to you is, why aren't people doing that more? Like, is it too expensive to do it? Is it, why aren't people more, why don't we see more regenerative agriculture in the world today?
Well, one of the reasons as to why most of them, well, for me, I usually bring it in line with Corey. I think of it in a way that people don't really know how to do some of these things, and they truly need to be helped because they look at it as something very, very, very impossible. But at the same time, in Africa here, uh, not in Africa, but in Uganda here, the common trend that I've seen is honestly all farmers have access to inputs, and the world is pushing for that. The agricultural industry is pushing for that. You know, it's this whole agribusiness thing. Everyone is pushing to sell their product. All right. And now here comes a system that is not really regulated, whereby people who have not even studied agriculture or studied agrochemical use and handling are uh, selling products. And it is a booming business. So when a farmer goes with a challenge, he has no idea about what to do. And then this person tells him that, you know what, you buy this, this will help you. All right. But at the same time, most people have not really seen a different type of farming. All right. I can say, let's look at everyone who was born within this century, right? Uh, Not even, let's say between 2000 to date. All right. They have not seen any other kind of farming. They've always seen, and all they have known is we always have to plant crops in lines. It has to be one crop. There shouldn't be any wheat, you know? And of course, when you look at the history, you know, we've been following trends. There came machines. When machines came into play, they could no longer work with trees. So people felt like we should do away with trees just because they needed to reduce on the labor costs and then uh, have large pieces of land, and not knowing that they were destroying the environment. But at the same time, I really always bring it down to the knowledge gap. There is a very huge knowledge gap, and people just don't know how to practice regenerative agriculture, or probably most of them have never heard about it. Or and most of them look at species, any other species, if it is not, let's say, cacao, if it is not coffee, if it is not maize, if it's not vegetables, they look at any other plant as a weed. So they always try as much as possible to get rid of it. And on top of that, they try as much as possible to get rid of any insect that they see without knowing why it is there. So I bring it back to the knowledge gap, and uh, basically that's why people are not picking up regenerative agriculture. Yeah, and it's not something that has been really promoted everywhere. So it's our duty to really push for it and try to show the people that they can really coexist with the environment without destroying it.
That's really interesting to hear, and it makes lots of sense because if I were going to start planting something on my backyard today, for example, um, I would probably think that all insects also are the problem, you know, because I don't know. And I
Yeah,
only think, oh yeah, insects are going to eat my
yeah,
plants, and I don't want them eating my plants. Or I'm going to look at a weed and I'm
yeah,
going to be like, well, yeah, this weed is in the way of my plant, and my
yeah.
plant is not going to grow because of this weed. So it's it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but one thing is always important to think through. Sometimes we are having quite a lot of insects that are coming to our crops just because we've destroyed their habitats mostly, and they have nothing else to eat. Just like you, Pedro.
That makes sense.
Just like you, if you have your favorite meal in Brazil, and you come to Uganda and you can't find it, then of course you'll be used to eating matoke. All right, you adapt to that. All right. So by destroying the habitats, they always come into our fields. And with regenerative agriculture, it's different. It gives insects a variety of species to feed on. And oftentimes they end up not feeding on our crops. All right. So we always have to think, or like, why is this coming? Why is this happening? But sometimes even when insects are coming to our field, like in cacao, there are some insects, they're red ants. Oftentimes when they come, sometimes within the rainy season, there are always too many. And the farmer would really get worried. But within the same season, there are other insects that come and dry up and feed on the cacao and dry it up. But when these red ants come, they come to fight those small insects and eat them up. So oftentimes, when a farmer sees the red ants, all they might want to go and look for is a pesticide to come and kill the red ants, yet they're helping them. So we always come in and tell them, you know what, these are your friends, right? Don't mind when you see them, just be happy. Your field is going to be looking great. So we are trying to turn them away from that old system of using agrochemicals. And yes, they're smallholder farmers, but they also want to practice commercial agriculture in their own way. So we try to shift them from that and show them the right way oftentimes.
You're using this expression, commercial agriculture.
Yeah.
Is that a word in Uganda for regenerative?
Not really. Commercial agriculture is it's a common word here that we use, and actually the government promotes it as commercial agriculture. Commercial agriculture is whereby people produce food crops or agricultural products strictly for sale on global markets, something of the kind, or on bigger
Oh, I see.
markets, So that's commercial agriculture, right?
That's like for exports.
Yeah, export, sending them to bigger markets, something of the kind. And it's a common thing here that is coming up. And for most people, given the fact that they have smaller farms, they also go and work on commercial farms. So you find someone with 1 acre, whatever knowledge they get from the other commercial farm that is growing, let's say cabbages or something else, it uses agrochemicals and all that stuff. And they also want to pick that knowledge and put it on their small farms. All right? Just because they've seen the other commercial farmer doing it, but they don't know.
They've seen that they're growing because they're selling lots of things that they want
and
to do that too.
They also want to do it, but they're doing it on just 1 acre. So they don't really get the reason behind that whole practice at the commercial farm. So with the farmers that we're working with, we are trying to really show them that you don't really need to do all this. You don't need to spend a lot of money on fertilizers. You don't need to spend a lot of money on bringing a lot of casual laborers to do weeding in your field. It's something that you can do on your own. You don't need to absent your children from going to school to help you in establishing your farm or weeding your farm. It's something that requires little time to manage. By the end of the day, you really get quite a lot. And if you look at the trend of our agroforestry system that we are implementing currently, it's a lot of labor is only required at establishment. But going forward, it's something that is very easy to manage. And over time, a farmer would have ample time to do other things and not look at almost spending most of the time within their agroforestry field, because within a short time it is self-regulating. You don't need to weed because it has droppings that it puts on the ground and they suppress the weeds. the pests are in check, soil is fertile, so there is no erosion, and all they have to do is just come and pick the fruits and just do some little maintenance over time. So as time goes by the third year, a farmer is spending less and less time within the field. All right. But even at the same time, the farmer is no longer doing longer routes to pick firewood. All right. So the trees already start giving them firewood to ensure that um, they prepare food at home. But at the same time, they do not go to the forest to, uh, interface with the chimpanzees. You get. So in one way or the other, that's how it reduces on the conflict with the chimpanzees, and that's how
Right.
we truly conserve them.
So
Yeah.
before I ask about the chimpanzees, I wanted to ask about what you said, which is the regenerative agriculture farm is self-regulating, right? Which means that there's less
Yeah.
labor required from the farmer, and that includes like less labor than in regular farms where you're using tons of pesticides and tons of um, manure and stuff like that. Is that the case?
Yeah. Yes.
And how long does it take for you to reach that point as an regenerative farmer?
Well, it goes on reducing, but by the seventh year, you don't really have much work to do.
Seven
Yeah.
years.
In 7 years, you don't really have much work on the farm, and at least it's self-regulating and all that. You have enough shade. Yeah, it really takes just that short time.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
But of course, it just doesn't come. It just doesn't come all of a sudden. But you have to from the start. You have to implement all the best practices from the start. All
Right.
right. But if you do clean cultivation all the time, weeding and all that, it might take you longer. But from the word go, from the time establishing the field, if the farmer does the best practices in 7 years, at least they have a self-regulating system.
That's very interesting because like it's and also it sounds like a very, very promising investment actually, because in 7 years, you're going to have a farm that is not only self-sustaining, but it's regenerative. So
Yep.
you're not going to have to spend a lot on labor for this farm. Of course, you still need to plant, you still need to
Yeah.
harvest. There is, of course, always
Yes.
going to
Yes.
have some labor
Yeah.
involved, but you also won't have to buy fertilizers or
No.
any sort of it. And are there any chemicals that are going to be necessary with regenerative agriculture, like any sort of specific pesticide every now and then, or is it 100% natural, not needed?
It's usually 100% not needed, um, because there are very few pest incidences with the model that we are implementing currently. The very few. A farmer can just usually handpick. And by implementing the best practices, for example, just pruning a bit to ensure light really goes through and all, light and uh, basically weeding, it really helps a lot. A farmer will not have the need to really have chemicals within the field. So a farmer will not need really agrochemicals, and we always show them the way to go by showing them the best practices, how they can make their own agrochemicals, how they can make their own biofertilizers. We also show them with the simple materials that they have around their fields, and we also recommend what they should plant just around their homes to ensure that whenever they need to uh, fertilize the soil, they use them. We give them the methods of preparation, yeah, and all that to ensure that at least they minimize the use of agrochemicals. And completely, we don't recommend it, and they're usually happy with it. And if you really do a projected income statement and um, show these farmers how best they're going to benefit, if we compare them with a farmer who is not part of our project, there is a very huge gap in the profit margin between a farmer who is participating in our project and a farmer who is not. And within the first year, yes,
So the farmer that is participating profits more.
they usually have more profits.
Wow.
All right. And you'd realize that at the third year, the farmer who is participating with us is getting at least, not even the third year, it is within the first 18 months with the cash crops, the farmer is getting their first fruit. All right. Just because we give them quality seedlings, we are always serious when it comes to the seedlings, the seedling quality that we give the farmers. We ensure right from the nursery, we grow them and we always have standards. By the time the seedling gets out of the nursery, it is of a high quality and able to survive within the harsh conditions.
So 18 months, they get the first crop. And how before that, how often do they usually had to wait before?
Usually they used to wait for 2.5 months. I mean years.
Wow.
2.5 years to get the first fruit. All right.
Wow.
Yeah, to get the first fruit because of the quality of seedlings. But with the seedlings that we give them and the planting methods we use, the most thing that I've seen is at 18 months.
Basically
farmers-
took down a year.
Yeah, they're getting at least the first fruit, which is, yes, not for sale, but at least they see the first fruit.
Right.
All right.
That's amazing.
And the best practices. You get. And the best practices. And at least by the third year, they get their first good harvest. All right. But for a farmer who is not participating with us, it even takes them 5 years to get the best harvest out of their field.
Wow.
All right. So usually that's the difference. Yeah, that's the difference. And I was also surprised because I've always known cash crops to give fruit at the third year. But as I've been working with these farmers, most of them, at 18 months, it brings a fruit.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So in projections, at 5 years, at least a farmer is able to have decent money to take his children to school, to have all the basic needs that they really need, and they have a full understanding of regenerative agriculture. Yes, it is a process. We are getting there. And at least now farmers do not really see the need of buying agrochemicals because we show them real life examples within their fields.
Right.
All right. And in one way or the other, yes, you'll find a farmer who has done mistakes and you have to correct them. Oh, you shouldn't have done clean cultivation, Or maybe sometimes you find them halfway because it's something they're used to. Most of them have been growing maize, they've been growing beans, and they've been doing clean cultivation, but now they're dealing with a different crop. So we show them different ways, and it gives us an opportunity at an early stage to show them the right way to go. So, yes, I can assure you that at least we have farmers who truly understand the regenerative methods. It's not all, it is a process.
Of course.
Step by step, by showing them and continuously, engaging them. And the more they understand, the beauty is one might come up within an area and they're very, very interested. When they learn these methods that they don't need to buy agro inputs anymore to put into their fields, they also go on telling other farmers about the benefits of regenerative agriculture and basically how they do it,
Right.
because they've learned something and they always want to teach most of their farmers as well. Yeah.
Of course.
So in one way or the other, you find other farmers trying to come on board.
That's amazing to hear.
Yeah, but the whole thing is within my role, basically it's all about bringing about healthy, restored, and productive landscapes among the people that we really work with, on their fields, basically. Yeah. So all we do, we always have to devise means to ensure that we achieve
It
that.
must feel really good, like when you see the results from your work, when you see the farmers getting results, right? I imagine you must be very, very happy doing what you do.
Yes, I am. I always truly like it and enjoy it when a farmer calls you at the end of the day or at the end of the week. Let's say I visited him 7 days ago and he calls you telling you that I'm seeing an improvement on my farm based on what you really told me. Honestly, some are usually hesitant, I would say, because sometimes they feel they know it. Others have been able to Google, you know, but sometimes on Google, there is a lot of misinformation. And usually we go in a debate and we're like, okay, uh, do that on a small portion of the field. And I'll also do uh, what I think is right for your field on a small part. And then later on, after some time, we come together and be like, whose part is performing better? And they're like, oh, yeah, you're telling me the truth. Uh, now that I know how it works, I'll put it in the whole field. All right. Yeah, and I also love it when I see farmers learning something and then they're teaching uh, their fellow farmers. They usually invite them onto their field and really show them what they're doing, and which is really, really interesting. But most importantly, a game changer for me and something that really fuels me is when I truly visit a farmer and show them what to do, and then at the end of the day, they show me that they're really seeing great results. But it's not all about great results, but the many times they always reach out or even just say, hey, you've really taken long to come pay a visit. Would you come around anytime soon? You know, it really shows that we are really doing a lot of work within the field. And it is really important. It wouldn't really be interesting visiting a farm and you never hear from them again, or even just calling you and saying hi. They usually do that. They call in and say, hi, how are you doing? And they give you an update of their field. And it really shows that we are really doing a great work in the field, and that keeps me motivated every day.
That's amazing to hear, man. That's super, super nice. And it's so good to see that you're doing a positive change in the world, a positive change on people's lives. And that's just beautiful. I
Yeah,
know that you are super busy, and I know that we're 15 minutes over time. Uh,
yeah,
but
sure.
do you have any topics that we didn't talk about, any things that we didn't mention that you would like to share before we go?
Well, one thing I feel I've exhausted almost everything in summary, and I feel what I'm really doing at Green Earth is honestly my dream. It's something that I've really felt like doing for a long, long time. Being in a community where we speak the same language and we understand each other. And with what I'm really doing, no one is forcing me. I'm always happy to do my work. And I always know it is always good to understand, to know what needs to be done, and then you do it at the end of the day. It's something that is really unheard of. And I'm always motivated to do my work at Green Earth. So basically, that's it. And it is a place for me to really create a change. My name will be on it somewhere, even if it's not on the books. But to me, this is the whole world to me, honestly.
That's amazing to hear, man. Well, your name is on the podcast
Yeah.
now. I can say that.
Sure. All
That's
right.
great,
Yeah.
man. Awesome. Thank you. Well, Pascal, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for sharing everything with us. This is a super interesting topic to me. And I think that the work that you're doing with the farmers and doing what you're doing is beautiful and is really making a change, a positive change in the world, which is amazing. And you should be very, very happy with what you do. And the stories that you shared, I believe that our listeners are going to find very, very interesting. You're always invited to come back to the podcast if you have any. I mean, there are so many things that we talked about, like you said, in
Yeah.
summary, and
Yeah.
I would love to explore those in
Yeah.
more detail. So, whenever you have some extra time and you're
Sure.
willing to come back, please let me know, and it will be a pleasure to have you here, man. But yeah, thank you so much. It was an amazing conversation.
Most welcome, Pedro. Thank you for hosting me. And surely I'll come back because I have a lot to talk about.
Amazing.
But for now, let's feast on that. It will take us through 2026 and probably mid 2026. I'll be back to share something.
Amazing. I would love to hear that update. Thank you for joining us today. The Green Earth Podcast is a Green Earth initiative. Green Earth is a large scale, nature based project developer, and our goal is to help nature flourish and prosper. If you want to read more about our projects, please check our website, green.earth. The link is also in the description. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider leaving us a review. And if you know anyone that might benefit from this content, we'd greatly appreciate your recommendation. I'm Pedro Zimmer, your host, and I hope to see you for the next episode of the Green Earth Podcast.